What happened?
Yes, I was. There was a large Puerto Rican neighborhood close by, and I actually had some run-ins with some Puerto Rican boys, and actually could have gotten into some serious trouble myself. And I realized that it was the flip side. Because my parents came up with some money and got me a good lawyer, I got off. But I realized that if it was this kid that I did the thing to, if it was him, he probably would have gone off and gone to prison or something like that. And it's like, if I had gone to prison at that age, being 17 years old, the formative time of your life, you basically absorb what's around you. So if I had gone into prison at that time, I wouldn't be standing right here right now. And so Strike One sort of wrote itself. I'm an actor, I'm a writer, and you try to develop the relationship with your creative muse or whatever it is. And, so Strike One sort of, as David came to me and said, well, the story about the boy is the most interesting part of your film. And when I started writing that, it took a long time, but every time I got criticized, I pissed off and got mad and everything, but when I would go home and think about it, they were right. And so Strike One sort of just kept writing itself. And then we had our budgetary problems at the end, and we had to change a lot of things around, but it just sort of all fell in place.
Thank you. Now I have a question for Stephen. How hard it is, or what are the challenges for you when trying to sell hear the question, the Latino storyline?
Well, you have, one thing I'm attracted to is powerful journeys, and I grew up in Detroit and then moved out to the suburbs, and so I was asking Lawrence earlier, what was the origination of the story? And so when we look at any project, from a script, I'll see a lot of films. Some of them, pinpoint, it can be a race, it can be a culture, religion, great stories, great journeys. All of you have traveled somewhere in your life. So when I moved to LA, I came, a couple years before the LA race riots, and a lot of my friends in Detroit and here were Latino, some were black. I've been fortunate enough to go a lot of places, and like Lawrence, I had my first run in the cops when I was 19. And I could have gone that direction too, believe it or not. But I also said, you know what, that's not where I want to be. When you see this kind of film and just the great effort that these people all pulled off, I said, you know what, this is a film worth supporting. And now what we do, and we've talked about this a lot already, is, you got Danny Trejo. People know Danny Trejo for a lot of things, right? And you can probably think of number one, what you think of when you think of Danny. Your culture. A couple of my early clients when I was a finance guy, when I moved to LA, indoctrinated me into the Hispanic world. They liked, I was a single guy, so I was, I had, one guy was a restaurant owner. He escaped when Cuba was, when Castro took over. He had to escape on a boat, but first he'd been in prison for a couple of years. I had another guy who owns LA Baking in LA, who was Nicaraguan. And he told me, twice he came to the border, twice sent back, was sent to prison, sent back, washed windows at the music center. And this was a guy, when I was a banker, I helped support and help grow his business from the bank side, because I said, here's a soul that's traveled a path I'll never travel, and he's worth supporting. So a long-winded answer to your question is what we have to do is we have to differentiate this from other films out there. Now, this one's easier because you got a great story, one. Two, it's very accurate. Three, I've been all over LA myself, and and we say habla español, but I mean, we also, it helps, but it's also, it's like when I was growing up in Detroit, I was telling the guys this morning, we saw the bars outside, and David was telling us from growing up here in the area, some of your family, just the, how the neighborhood's changed. Yeah, and one thing as a young kid, I hated bars on windows. I was like, why do they have that? I didn't get it. And then you get it. And so, when you look at a film like this, and then, again, talking to distributors, especially a lot of the buyers from other countries, they're attracted to the film because of Danny. They're attracted to the film because there's a story, there's a journey. Urban thriller, urban drama. This isn't, you can see this and say it's a wall of action. No. But it's, in a lot of ways, it's a family film. This is a family film, and this is a story that could, travel and also be seen by a lot of people in a lot of different cultures. You know, when I got married, I went to Jamaica. My wife said at first, "You want to go to Jamaica, you know, for a honeymoon?" But, you know, I'd grown up and I loved that culture also. And so I met a gentleman there that took me up into the hills. We went to Bob Marley's house. You know, he brought me into that world. And, you know, being in Detroit, I was comfortable there. A lot of white people wouldn't have been, I guess. But we have another film, Kingston Paradise. You know, it was a female director we picked up, and we've sold it some places in the world. And like these guys, she clawed, she sweated, she worked really hard to get her film done. And, you know, so I said, let's take that to market, Mary. Let's let some of the world see that film. And so now we're at the stage where we're doing that. So you take all the pieces of that, you know, the life, the culture, the great work that's done, the acting performances are terrific here. I think you would agree. You know, the sound, and, you know, the resonance. There's a lot of, I have to go on, but there's a lot of things that we have to do to differentiate that. So that's one of the things we start, and it makes it easier when you get something that's done really well.
Well, thank you so much for supporting Latino independent filmmakers. And we hope that you can find many more films in this festival that you can do this. Thank you. Muchas gracias. I'm going to ask one more question to Felipe and Maria Isa, and then we go back to the audience, okay? So, Maria Isa, you are obviously very beautiful and talented, but how intimidating was for you to work with Danny Trejo and Alma Martinez?
I was, Danny Trejo, I've seen him since Blood In, Blood Out. It was just exciting once David had said he was on board, but also very familiar. A lot of the men in my life are very similar to that Theo Manny character of Latino men having pride and doing whatever it takes to make sure that everything's settled. So I kind of had that background of saying, you know, I can talk to Machete. He doesn't know, you know, I got a little Machete in me. So it was very, very just a great opportunity. Something, it's my first film. I'm looking forward to doing more and just being able to have my first platform on a Latino film, which is very important. Alongside one of the greatest legends in Latino film and theater, Alma Martinez, who I learned so much, and not just in the acting and theatrical scene, but more on a confidence and having respect as a woman with ganas. Those are her exact words. And so, you know, just overwhelming, but yet inspiring, and I can't wait to see what blooms for Strike One. And, you know, look at Johnny Ortiz tomorrow. You got a kid who was one, and surrounded by that whole area and influences, and he's changed it. He did a 360, and he's starring in Disney McFarlane tomorrow. So, you know, just to be a part of this momentum, it's a family, it's a growth, and it's a, like I said, a platform, a stepping stone for Latinos in Hollywood and in film.
And plus, you are a producer and an actor, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, actually, I grew up in City Terrace, which is actually about 2 miles away from Boyle Heights. But the one thing I can tell you is that the movie is actually relatively tame in regards to reflecting the way I grew up. I grew up, when we would go to school on Monday, sometimes I was like, guess who got shot over the weekend? When you look back and you think about it, that's a weird thing for kids to talk about. But yeah, I mean, I remember walking to school and you see, dry, encrusted blood on the sidewalk. And, you know, one of the things that I did was after I finished college, I came back and I actually taught at the high school my older brother and sister attended. And I realized that, you know, it's one of those things where the more things change, the more they stay the same. So I saw a lot of the same mentality, and it just basically some of the same problems. So when when David approached me about jumping on board to help produce the film, I go, oh, so you need an official Mexican. I can do that. But also one of the things was actually what I really appreciated from David was that he approached me for the sake of also making sure that we kept as accurate to East LA and as accurate to the Mexican American culture in that area.
I have a question for the writer. I was a little confused about why you put in the script that the lawyer was doing cocaine, and then they show a scene where he talks so intelligently. I didn't know whether that was the cocaine or was it.
I sort of drew that off of my writing partner, who was from the first script who wrote with me, who was a brilliant man, an incredible lawyer. That was the case that me and David went to see try, and he just fell into the world. And he was the one who told me that that's the first thing they sent him when he passed the bar was the drug and rehab pamphlets. And I was in courthouses with him where he'd be walking off the side. He has this thing he called, like, this was his office. It was like a hallway, concrete hallway that led to a window where he would go smoke and snort right before he went into the courtroom.
Because they never showed him in a downfall. They always showed him. You know what I mean? He always looked like a smart man all throughout, even with his drug.
He was then. And I went with him and watched him get in front of judges and a crowd like this in LA County, and he'd go off to his office, and it took him a long time to deteriorate, this guy. He was pretty incredible. I couldn't believe it.
Brilliant lawyer. He did have the majority of his clients were Latino, and it's like, like attracts like. He had that element with him just like I did when I was a young man, a rambunctious kind of guy. And he sort of really associated with them, really wanted to help them, but then he sort of became, just involved in that whole world, and it just spiraled out. So 20 years. So it took him. I watched him go downhill for a long time, and watched him in court performing. Before, when he was not on cocaine, and then afterward, when he was, it was like the same kind. So we just tried to add that element of reality to the subject, that even though a person is a drug addict and wants to do drugs, doesn't mean he doesn't want to do a good job too. He did. It's just like that was his weakness, and it's a weakness that a lot of lawyers have because it is such a stressful